Pharmacy employee insults an old woman for buying with coins, not aware that Keanu Reeves was looking. It was a chilly evening in Los Angeles, and Keanu Reeves had just finished a long day on set. Dressed in his usual understated style, dark jeans, a simple black jacket, and a baseball cap, he decided to stop by a small pharmacy to pick up some essentials. As he browsed the shelves, his attention was drawn to an elderly woman at the counter. She wore a faded green coat, and her trembling hands carefully counted a handful of coins to pay for her medicine. The cashier, a young man with an impatient scowl, tapped his fingers on the counter. "Seriously, lady, you're holding up the line for a few measly coins," he sneered. "This isn't a charity. If you don't have enough, just come back when you do." The old woman's face turned red with embarrassment. "I'm sorry, dear. I just need a little more time," she said softly. Keanu clenched his jaw. He hated seeing people treated poorly, especially the elderly. He quietly stepped forward, placing a crisp $100 bill on the counter. "That should cover her medicine," he said in his calm yet commanding voice. The cashier looked up, his face going pale as he realized who stood before him. "Mr. Reeves!" he stammered. Keanu didn't acknowledge his shock. Instead, he turned to the old woman and smiled warmly. "You don't have to count every penny today, ma'am. Take care of yourself, okay?" Tears welled up in her eyes. "Bless you, young man. You have such a kind heart." Keanu nodded and turned to the cashier. His expression was serious. "Respect costs nothing. You should remember that." With that, he grabbed his own items and walked out, leaving behind a lesson the entire store would never forget. Pharmacy employee insults an old woman for buying with coins, not aware that Keanu Reeves was looking. Part 2. The pharmacy fell into a stunned silence as Keanu Reeves walked toward the exit. The elderly woman clutched the medicine bottle in her wrinkled hands, still processing what had just happened. The cashier, visibly shaken, avoided eye contact with the other customers, who had now begun whispering among themselves. One man in line scoffed. "Did you see that? Keanu Reeves just schooled this guy." A woman behind him nodded. "Serves him right for treating an old lady like that. Just because someone pays with coins doesn't mean they deserve to be humiliated." The embarrassed cashier swallowed hard, realizing he had made a terrible mistake. He had insulted an innocent woman, and worse, he had been caught in the act by one of the most respected actors in the world. He quickly turned back to the elderly woman. "Ma'am, I'm sorry." He stammered, his face red with shame. "I shouldn't have spoken to you like that." The old woman looked at him with a gentle expression. "Son, kindness costs nothing. I hope you'll remember that next time." Meanwhile, outside the pharmacy, Keanu was unlocking his motorcycle when he heard hurried footsteps behind him. He turned to see the cashier jogging toward him. "Mr. Reeves, wait!" the young man called out, slightly out of breath. Keanu raised an eyebrow but remained silent, waiting for him to speak. I feel awful about what I did in there," the cashier admitted, rubbing the back of his neck. "You were right. I was rude. I was stressed and took it out on her, and that wasn't fair." Keanu studied him for a moment before nodding. "Owning up to your mistakes is a good start." The young man exhaled. "Do you think she'll forgive me?" Keanu gave him a small, knowing smile. "You won't know until you try. But more than just apologizing, show her, and everyone else, that you've changed." The cashier nodded, determination in his eyes. "I will. Thank you, Mr. Reeves." Keanu patted his shoulder before putting on his helmet. "Be good," he said simply before revving up his motorcycle and disappearing into the night. The next morning, the elderly woman returned to the pharmacy, expecting just another ordinary day, but to her surprise, the same cashier greeted her with a warm smile. "Good morning, ma'am," he said, a newfound kindness in his voice. "I just wanted to say, I'm really sorry about yesterday, and from now on, your money, no matter how you pay, will always be welcome here." The old woman chuckled, placing her small coin purse on the counter. "Well, that's good to hear, because I've got a lot of pennies today." The young man laughed, shaking his head. "Take all the time you need, ma'am." And just like that, one small act of kindness had sparked a change. Keanu Reeves may have left the pharmacy that night, but his lesson remained, a simple reminder that respect, patience, and compassion should never be forgotten. Pharmacy employee insults an old woman for buying with coins, not aware that Keanu Reeves was looking. Part 3. Days passed, and the young cashier, whose name was Alex, found himself reflecting on the lesson he had learned that fateful night. He had always prided himself on being efficient, quick, and businesslike, but after witnessing Keanu Reeves' kindness, he realized that true success wasn't about speed, it was about humanity. From that day forward, he made a conscious effort to treat every customer with patience and respect. He greeted people with a smile, helped elderly customers carry their bags, and even started a small initiative where customers could donate spare change to help those struggling to afford their prescriptions. Word spread quickly. Regular customers noticed the change in Alex, and soon the pharmacy became known as a place where people were treated with dignity, no matter their circumstances. Even the elderly woman he had insulted, Mrs. Thompson, became a frequent visitor, often stopping by just to chat. One evening, as Alex was organizing the counter, he heard the sound of a motorcycle pulling up outside. His heart skipped a beat. Could it be? The door swung open, and in walked Keanu Reeves, his usual calm and humble demeanor unchanged. He took off his helmet, revealing his signature shoulder-length hair, and casually walked up to the counter. Alex straightened up, his palms slightly sweaty. "Mr. Reeves? I didn't think I'd see you again." Keanu gave him a small smile, just passing through. "Thought I'd grab some water." Alex quickly grabbed a bottle and placed it on the counter. "On the house," he said. Keanu chuckled. "That's kind of you, but I can pay." Alex hesitated, then nodded. "All right, but I just wanted to say thank you for what you did that night. It really changed me." Keanu leaned on the counter, interested. "Oh yeah?" Alex nodded enthusiastically. "Yeah. I used to think people who paid with coins or took their time were just slowing things down. But after what you did for Mrs. Thompson, I realized that everyone has their own struggles. Now I try to be more patient, more understanding." Keanu smiled. "That's good to hear. The world needs more people who care." Just then, Mrs. Thompson walked into the store, her face lighting up when she saw Keanu. "Well, if it isn't my guardian angel," she said warmly. Keanu turned to her, giving her a polite nod. "Mrs. Thompson, good to see you again." She patted Alex on the shoulder. "This young man here has been a changed soul. I think you worked some movie magic on him." Keanu chuckled. "Nah, that was all him. People can change if they want to." Alex smiled, feeling a sense of pride he had never felt before. It wasn't just about being a better employee, it was about being a better person. Keanu grabbed his water, gave Alex a nod of approval, and turned to leave. But before stepping out, he paused and looked back. "Oh, and Alex." "Yeah?" Keanu smirked. "Next time don't judge a customer by their coins. You never know who's watching." With a wink, he walked out, leaving behind a lesson that Alex and everyone in that store would never forget. Shh! Pharmacy employee insults an old woman for buying with coins. Not aware that Keanu Reeves was looking, Part 4. As the door swung shut behind Keanu Reeves, Alex let out a breath he didn't realize he had been holding. He looked over at Mrs. Thompson, who was smiling knowingly at him. "You know," she said, adjusting her scarf, "kindness has a way of rippling out into the world. What Mr. Reeves did for me that night, it didn't just help me, it helped you too." Alex nodded, his expression thoughtful. "Yeah, it really did." That night, as he was closing up the pharmacy, Alex noticed something strange outside. A small group of people was standing near the entrance, murmuring excitedly and looking around. Confused, he stepped outside. Can I help you, folks?" A young woman with glasses stepped forward. "Is this the pharmacy where Keanu Reeves helped an old lady pay for her medicine?" Alex blinked. Yeah, how did you—" "It went viral, man!" A guy in a hoodie held up his phone, showing a video of the incident. The security camera footage had somehow leaked, and thousands of comments were flooding in. "Keanu Reeves being a real-life hero again," the guy read aloud. "We don't deserve this man. Look at the shares, bro. This story blew up." Alex's stomach flipped. He had no idea the moment had been captured, let alone that it had spread all over the internet. More people started arriving, some just to take pictures outside the pharmacy, others curious to hear the story firsthand. News reporters were even setting up across the street. It was official. This small pharmacy had become an overnight sensation. The media frenzy. By morning, journalists were lined up outside, eager to interview anyone who had been there that night. The pharmacy owner, Mr. Garcia, an elderly man with a thick mustache, was baffled when he walked in. "Alex," he said, rubbing his temples. "Why is there a news crew outside my store?" Alex chuckled nervously. Because Keanu Reeves is a real-life angel, apparently." Mr. Garcia sighed, but he couldn't help but smile. "Well, if this gets us more customers, I won't complain." Soon enough, Alex was being interviewed on live television. Reporters asked him about his encounter with Keanu, how the event had changed his outlook, and what he thought about kindness in customer service. "I just think people forget that respect costs nothing," he said into the microphone, repeating the lesson Keanu had taught him. "Whether you're paying with coins or credit, everyone deserves to be treated with dignity." The story continued to gain traction, and soon Alex's transformation became just as inspiring as Keanu's original act of kindness. People started visiting the pharmacy just to meet him, some even bringing in spare change as a symbolic gesture. A surprise visitor. A week after the story went viral, as Alex was restocking shelves, the doorbell chimed. He turned to greet the customer, only to freeze. There, standing in front of him, was Keanu Reeves. He wasn't alone this time. A few men in suits stood behind him, and in Keanu's hand was a small envelope. "Alex," Keanu greeted with a nod. "Looks like you're a bit famous now." Alex laughed, still shocked. "Yeah, didn't see that coming." Keanu placed the envelope on the counter. "I heard about the donation thing you started, helping people who can't afford their medicine. That's a good cause." Alex swallowed. I wanted to do something. You inspired me, Mr. Reeves." Keanu pushed the envelope toward him. "This should help keep it going." Alex hesitantly opened it, and nearly dropped it in shock. Inside was a check for $50,000. His hands shook. I can't accept this." Keanu smiled. "You already have. Just make sure it helps the people who need it." Tears welled up in Alex's eyes. He had gone from an impatient, dismissive cashier to someone responsible for real change, all because of one moment of kindness. Keanu gave him a final nod, then turned to leave. But before stepping out, he glanced back and said, "And remember, Alex, kindness doesn't just change one life. It changes the world." As the door swung shut behind him, Alex knew one thing for certain. He would never take another customer for granted again. Pharmacy employee insults an old woman for buying with coins, not aware that Keanu Reeves was looking. Part 5. As Alex stood there, gripping the check from Keanu Reeves, a mix of emotions overwhelmed him. Gratitude, shock, responsibility. Mrs. Thompson, who had been sitting in the waiting area flipping through an old magazine, watched the entire exchange with a knowing smile. Well, well," she chuckled. "Looks like you've got quite the mission ahead of you, young man." Alex exhaled deeply and nodded. "Yeah, I guess I do." The birth of the Keanu Fund. That night, Alex sat at his tiny apartment's dining table, staring at the check. He knew he couldn't keep this money for himself. This was bigger than him. The next morning, with the blessing of Mr. Garcia, Alex started the Keanu Fund, a small initiative within the pharmacy that allowed struggling customers to get essential medicines at reduced or no cost. A discreet donation box was placed near the counter for others to contribute, and within days it was filling up fast. News outlets caught wind of the fund, and donations started pouring in from all over the country. People inspired by Keanu's act of kindness and Alex's transformation wanted to be part of the movement. A single moment of compassion had turned into something much greater. A visit from an unexpected guest. One quiet afternoon, as Alex was organizing shelves, the doorbell chimed. He turned around, expecting another reporter or curious visitor, but instead he saw an elderly man in a worn-out jacket, hesitating near the entrance. "Can I help you, sir?" Alex asked with a warm smile. The man stepped forward, wringing his hands. I heard about this fund. I lost my job recently, and my wife, she needs her heart medication. I don't have enough to cover it this time." Alex's heart ached. He remembered how he once would have dismissed someone like this, judging them without understanding their struggles. But not anymore. "Don't worry about it," Alex said, ringing up the medicine. "It's covered." The man's eyes welled up with tears. "I don't know what to say," Alex simply smiled. "Just pay it forward when you can." As the man left, Alex felt a deep sense of fulfillment. This was what true success felt like. Not in money, not in status, but in making a difference. An unexpected call. One evening, as Alex was locking up, his phone buzzed with an unknown number. Curious, he answered. "Hello?" "Alex, hey!" came a familiar voice. "It's Keanu." Alex nearly dropped his phone. "Mr. Reeves?" Keanu chuckled. "Just Keanu, man. Listen, I saw what you did with the fund. It's amazing. You took one moment and turned it into something real." Alex swallowed, still in disbelief that Keanu Reeves was casually calling him. "I just wanted to do something good. You showed me how." "Well, you inspired a lot of people," Keanu said, "including me. So, how about we take this to the next level?" Alex frowned. "What do you mean? How do you feel about expanding the fund? Bigger scale, more people helped." Alex's brain nearly short-circuited. "Are you serious?" "Very," Keanu replied. "I know some people who'd love to back something like this. If you're up for it, we can make this way bigger than just one pharmacy." Alex was speechless. A month ago, he was just another impatient cashier, barely thinking beyond his next paycheck. Now, Keanu Reeves was offering him a chance to change lives on a massive scale. He took a deep breath and grinned. "I'm in." The ripple effect of kindness. Over the next few months, the Keanu Fund grew into a national initiative, with pharmacies across the country joining in to help people afford life-saving medicine. Major donors pitched in, and soon it became a full-fledged organization dedicated to making healthcare more accessible. Alex was no longer just a cashier, he was a change-maker. And it had all started with one simple act of kindness. One moment of choosing patience over frustration, compassion over indifference. As for Keanu Reeves, he remained his humble self, occasionally checking in with Alex but never taking credit. "Just doing my part," he'd say. But Alex knew better. He knew that one man's kindness had changed not just his life, but the lives of thousands. And maybe, just maybe, it was only the beginning. The end.